Right. So are you ready to dive into some pretty fascinating stuff?
Always.
Okay, good. Because today we are looking at Kai Trump's YouTube vlog.
Yeah.
From election night 2024.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And, her is Donald Trump's granddaughter, of course. But in this vlog, she's giving us like a really, really unfiltered look at what that night was like for the family behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's interesting to see, that perspective.
Right.
Like not just the political spectacle we usually see, but like a personal side of it.
Yeah, exactly. And what's really interesting is how she balances this huge, momentous political event with just being a teenager.
Yeah.
And at the beginning of the vlog, you almost forget that her grandfather's running for president.
Yeah.
He's dealing with normal teenage anxieties, like a golf tournament and agonizing over what to wear.
Right.
Even just stressing about getting her makeup right.
I remember those days.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And she even jokes about, needing to show off her new Hollywood smile, like flashing her newly whitened teeth at the camera.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it makes you realize that they're just normal people, too.
Totally. It really humanizes her. And in a way, the whole Trump family.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that makes her a lot more relatable, especially for younger viewers who might be watching.
I can see that.
It's like, hey, even if your grandpa isn't running for president, we've all been there with those pre-event jitters.
Exactly. Yeah, it's those shared human experiences that make her relatable to a wider audience than just, people interested in politics.
For sure. But let's be real, the political backdrop is impossible to ignore.
Oh, absolutely.
The vlog is filmed at Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah.
And for anyone who doesn't know, that's Donald Trump's very lavish estate in Florida. It's become kind of synonymous with his whole image.
Yeah, it's a character in the story almost.
Yeah.
It's not just a home. It's like a symbol of wealth and power. And I guess a certain version of the American dream that he embodies.
Yeah, for sure. So we have this fascinating setting, and as election night unfolds, Kai's vlog takes us inside the family's world. We see them having dinner together, friends and supporters are gathering, and you can feel the anticipation in the air.
It must have been electric.
Oh, yeah.
Being there.
Totally.
It's like a behind-the-scenes tour of a historical event.
Right.
But with a very personal touch.
And we even see glimpses of Donald Trump as a grandfather, joking with Kai and calling her throughout the evening.
Oh, wow.
Which, reminds us that behind all the political drama, there are real family relationships happening. And those relationships, especially in a family like the Trumps, must really shape how Kai sees the world.
I would imagine so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that influence becomes even more apparent when Pennsylvania is called Giving Donald Trump the Win.
Right.
And the vlog captures all the raw emotion of that moment. The cheers, the hugs, even Kai tearing up with pride.
It must have been really powerful to witness that firsthand.
Oh, yeah. And what really struck me was her commentary.
Yeah.
She talks about her grandfather's work ethic, his resilience, and how he never gives up, even when he's faced with so much criticism.
It's a very classic American dream narrative.
Yeah.
The self-made man who overcomes all these obstacles to achieve success.
Right.
And it's so clear that she sees her grandfather as embodying those ideals.
Absolutely. And she even says that she wants to emulate his dedication and hard work.
Wow.
Yeah, you can see how much she admires him. But what I thought was really interesting was when she starts talking about her grandfather's motivations for running again.
Yeah, what does she say about that?
Well, she makes a point of saying that it's not about power or personal gain for him. She really believes he's doing this because he wants to serve the country and do what's right for the people.
That's a powerful belief.
It is, and that's where we start to see the real depth of her perspective. It's not just about supporting her grandfather. It's about aligning with a much broader ideology, a belief system that's rooted in a particular vision of America.
I see.
Yeah. And
it's a perspective that seems to resonate with a lot of Trump supporters. This idea that he's a fighter for the everyday American, battling against a corrupt elite.
Right.
It's a powerful narrative.
It is.
And it clearly speaks to her on a very personal level.
Yeah, it does. And it's this perspective that we're going to explore even further as we continue this deep dive. Because understanding Kai's belief in her grandfather's motivations is really key to understanding her overall worldview.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how her vlog, while being so personal and specific to her family's experience, also reflects broader trends in American politics, particularly the rise of populism.
Right.
But we'll get into that more as we go on.
Okay, so we've kind of set the stage here.
Right.
Election night in Mar-a-Lago. A glimpse into the Trump family celebration. And a peek into the mind of a young woman who deeply admires her grandfather. Now let's dive even deeper into the nuances of Kai's perspective and what her vlog reveals about the political landscape of 2024.
Let's do it. It's important to remember as we're watching this vlog that we're only seeing a filtered version of reality. She's choosing what to show us and what to leave out.
That's true. It makes you wonder what's happening behind the scenes. What conversations they're having that we don't see.
Yeah, or what doubts or anxieties they might have that they're not putting on camera.
Exactly.
It's like a snapshot, a carefully curated snapshot of a much bigger and more complicated picture.
Right, but even within that snapshot, there's a lot to unpack, especially when it comes to how she sees her grandfather's motivations for running.
Yeah, let's talk about that more.
Okay, so she keeps saying that he's not doing this for himself, that he really wants to do what's right for the people.
Mm-hmm.
But how does she square that belief with some of the more controversial things he's done? Both in his first term and during this campaign.
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it? I mean, does she just ignore those controversies or rationalize them somehow? Or does she genuinely not see them as problems?
Right. And it's not like we can really know for sure just from watching this vlog.
Yeah.
But her perspective makes me think about a bigger question. How do people reconcile their support for a politician with things that politician has done that they might normally find objectionable?
That's a great point. It happens all the time. People compartmentalize or rationalize things to justify their beliefs.
Yeah, it's like mental gymnastics.
Yeah.
To make things fit with what we already believe.
Exactly. And often it comes down to this idea that you have to choose the lesser of two evils.
Right.
Or that the ends justify the means, even if those means aren't pretty.
So maybe Kai sees her grandfather's flaws as insignificant compared to the threat she thinks the opposition poses.
Possibly.
She might believe he's the only one strong enough or willing to take on those threats, even if he has to bend the rules or break with tradition.
Yeah. And that really fits with the whole populist narrative he's created.
Mm-hmm.
He's the lone warrior fighting against the system.
Right.
And his supporters see him as the only one who can drain the swamp.
And that narrative is really appealing to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Especially if they feel like the political establishment has ignored them.
For sure, it gives them hope.
Right. Hope that someone is finally fighting for them.
And you see that hope in Kai's vlog.
You do. She really believes he's going to make America great again.
Right.
And she's excited about the future under his leadership.
But it's interesting that she never really defines what that greatness looks like.
Now that you mention it, I don't think she does. She uses these vague phrases like making America safe and bringing back jobs, but she doesn't get into specifics.
Right. It's more of a feeling, a sense of optimism and faith that he'll keep his promises.
I guess that speaks to the power of emotions in politics.
It does.
Sometimes it's not about policy or concrete plans. It's about appealing to people's deep desires for security and prosperity and national pride.
Exactly.
You're creating a vision of a better future without necessarily explaining how to get there.
And that's a really effective strategy, especially in this media landscape, where sound bites and emotional appeals often drown out real policy discussions.
Absolutely. But it does make you wonder about the role of critical thinking in all this.
It does.
Are we as citizens demanding enough of our leaders? Are we holding them accountable? Or are we just getting swept up in all the rhetoric?
Those are good questions.
And they become even more relevant when we look at Kai's perspective. I mean, she's clearly a smart young woman.
Yeah.
But there's a certain naivete there.
Yeah.
A willingness to just accept her grandfather's narrative without questioning it.
And that's understandable to some extent. She's young, she's loyal to her family, and she's grown up in a world that reinforces that worldview.
Right. But it also highlights how important critical thinking and media literacy are.
Especially these days.
Yeah, with all the misinformation and propaganda out there.
We need to be able to analyze information objectively and question assumptions and form our own opinions.
It's about being engaged citizens, not just passively consuming information that confirms what we already believe.
Exactly.
And it's about recognizing that even the most charismatic leaders, even those who claim to be fighting for the people, are still just people.
With their own agendas and motivation.
Right. And we have to hold them accountable, not just blindly follow their lead.
That's a really important point. And it's one we should keep in mind as we head into the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
Because Kai's vlog, with all its complexities, really raises this fundamental question about what it means to do what's right for the people.
Okay, so we've talked about how Kai sees her grandfather's motivations.
Right.
And this whole idea of him being a fighter for the people.
Mm-hmm.
But what does that actually mean? You know?
That's a good question.
Like, who are the people in this context?
Yeah.
And what does it mean to do right by them?
Yeah, the people is such a broad term.
Right.
It can be used to include some and exclude others.
It can.
And what's right is totally subjective.
Yeah, it depends on your values and your experiences.
Right. That's exactly.
And in Kai's case, we're seeing all of this through a very specific lens. The lens of someone who's deeply connected to the Trump family and their worldview.
Right. A worldview that's often presented as very black and white. Us versus them.
Exactly.
Insiders versus outsiders.
Patriots versus traitors.
Yeah.
And in that framework,
Yeah.
the people are the ones who agree with Trump's vision for America.
The ones who share his values.
And support his agenda.
Right. So it's a definition that leaves a lot of people out.
It does.
Not much room for disagreement there.
Which is kind of ironic when you think about it.
Yeah.
Because America is supposed to be this melting pot.
Yeah.
A nation built on diversity and inclusion.
So how does this idea of doing what's right for the people actually work in a country that's so diverse and complex?
Right, because what's right for one group might not be right for another.
Exactly. And that's where you get conflict and division.
And we've seen a lot of that in American politics lately.
Oh, absolutely.
This increasing polarization, the erosion of trust in institutions, the rise of identity politics.
Yeah, it's like our society is struggling to figure out what it stands for.
And what it means to be a nation.
Exactly.
And I think Kai's vlog shows us one perspective on all of this, a perspective shaped by loyalty and faith in her grandfather.
But it's important to remember that it's just one perspective.
Many.
And even within the group of Trump supporters, there's a whole range of beliefs and motivations.
Right.
And ideas about what's right and wrong.
And that's important to keep in mind as we move forward, as we try to navigate this increasingly complex political landscape.
I agree.
Because it's not about silencing people who disagree with us or demonizing them.
It's about having respectful conversations.
Trying to find common ground.
And recognizing that other people's perspectives are valid, even if we don't agree with them.
It's about remembering that we're all part of this thing called democracy.
And that we have a responsibility to participate in it thoughtfully and critically.
With open mind.
And maybe by listening to voices like Kai's. Even if we don't share her views, we can get a better understanding of the forces shaping our political discourse.
And the challenges we face as a nation.
Yeah.
So as you think about Kai's perspective and her belief that her grandfather is trying to do what's right for the people, ask yourself what that phrase means to you.
And how can we bridge the divides that separate us and work towards a future where everyone feels seen and heard, regardless of their political beliefs?
That's a great question, and one that I think we all need to keep thinking about.
Absolutely.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into Kai Trump's election night vlog. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep the conversation going.